guy, Thoth, he talked about being able to achieve immortality through controlling his incarnations. And what he would do is he would go into something called the Halls of Amenti. Now, only the elite of the elites had these Halls of Amenti. His father, Enki, had one, he had one, and Lil had one. And the seven masters also had these Halls of Amenti. And these Halls of Amenti were deep underground in some cases. The one he talked about was underneath the Great Pyramid. Now, I've been down this subterranean shaft, which goes down 65 meters, and then another 30 meters down beneath that. And there's more to go beneath even that.
There's more?
Oh, there's more.
And you know what's down there?
Oh, yeah. All that's down there is you have chambers. They discovered them through a special type of a scan, a muon scan. They discovered these huge halls underground, underneath the Great Pyramid that extend out underneath Giza a mile. And all of them appear to be potentially empty. They won't tell us what was there or what wasn't there. But these Halls of Amenti that were written 36,000 years ago by Thoth, they actually exist right now today. It's called the Halls of Amenti, where they have the rejuvenation chambers. Now, there's another area in Saqqara where they have another Halls of Amenti. They call it the Serapeum, and that's underground, and that is Enlil's or Enki's Halls of Amenti. I believe it's potentially Enki's Ptah in ancient Kemet, his Halls of Amenti. And these are gigantic, megalithic granite and diorite stone boxes that are in these halls. These alcoves are so tight, the box barely fits in there. Now, to give you an idea of why this is important, because a 1,000-ton diorite box or a 1,000-ton crystal granite box has to be carved from a piece that's about almost 2/3 larger than what you carved it down to. So that means that, first of all, you couldn't roll a gigantic ball of granite down there because it can't fit. The second thing is you can't even fit it into the alcove or the hall. And the third thing is, so you can't carve it in there. So how did they get there? You can't even navigate them after you carve them outside and put it. You can't get them. They're too big to navigate into those alcoves, which means they were manifested there or teleported there. When you analyze these halls, you realize that they look like the halls or segments of modules of a machine. Listen, these things could be 30, 40,000 years old. This is way older than mainstream is saying 4,000 or 5,000. No, these things are tens of thousands of years old, and it's just mind-blowing. Thoth says he would put his body in these things, right? And he would put his body in there. He would create bodies. So we're talking about avatars. Now, this is something we can do right now in science. I can take a skin cell from you right now. In laboratory conditions, I can turn your skin cell into stem cells. Then I could take that culture of stem cells and I can grow them, and then I can create a synthetic embryo from your skin cell. Now I can take that synthetic embryo and I can grow it to a full-grown version of you, and then I can actually transfer your mind into that new body. That's what they were doing right then. Let's look at the ancient Egyptians, for example. During the time of ancient Kemet, before it was called Egypt, these pharaohs, which were demigods, they were half human, half Anunnaki. Kingship was handed down to them to be the liaison between the Anunnaki and mankind after the Great Flood. The Kemetic people were taught about this life extension, and they were taught how to mummify. That was the original origins of mummification. They weren't taught to be mummified, that the kings would be mummified for the purpose of going into the afterlife and sailing on the solar boat. That became a mythology later on with dynastic era Egyptians. The reason why these kings would be buried in the Valley of the Kings with all their gold, all their money, their wives, their cats, right? I mean, the maids and everything else was because they believed they were going to come back and use that. If you were going to go on a solar boat and head into the afterworld, why would you kill everybody and have your money there? Because clearly, you know, your money can't be used in the afterlife. It was because they were told by these beings, who were their relatives, that we preserve this is the technique to preserve your DNA. And we will clone you, and we will bring you back, and you will have access to your riches again. The true fact is that they thought they were really coming back to live life again here in the third dimension and regain control of their own kingdom. Now, prior to the Great Flood, we have the Sumerian Kings list, which is located in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, England. This list is a stone tablet that is covered in 4 sides with ancient texts and cuneiform writing that has been deciphered for over 180 years. That gives you the ruling and the kingship of these kings and the years that they ruled. One king, Alligar, will rule for 28,000 years. Another king ruling for 36,000 years. Another king rules for 14,000 years. These kings weren't dying. These are beings that had found a way to achieve a version of immortality.
Right.
Some of them could die because in these tales, in these epics, Some are actually murdered and killed through battle and war. Sometimes they can't bring them back.
Okay.
Sometimes they can bring you back, but sometimes they can't. And Thoth, the Atlantean, he says, I can incarnate at will on and in the plane I desire. He's talking about incarnating not only in the third dimension, he says he can incarnate into higher dimensions. Well, there's life in every dimension. We know that the universe itself is comprised of at least 11 dimensions, according to theoretical physicists, like Michio Kaku, for example. Otherwise, the universe would actually collapse. The numeric models would say that it would literally collapse on itself. We also discovered at the Brain Institute about 4 years ago that the human brain connects to 11 dimensions. So we see this connection between the brain and the universe, both having connectivity to higher dimensions. And so in each dimension is a realm. And all these dimensions are stacked directly on top of each other. We're sitting with dimensions stacked on top of us right now. They're compactified less than 1 Planck unit away from the next one in a 90-degree angle. And so that means that what's keeping us from getting into higher dimensions is nothing but a frequency. So if you can match the frequency or vibration of a higher dimension, you can walk right in, which could explain paranormal activity in our realm. Imagine a person ascends here spiritually from this dimension, leaves this avatar body behind, goes to a higher dimension, but they have the ability to match the frequency slightly of our dimension. This could be the source of paranormal activity, apparitions, and all these things. It could be beings that have ascended to higher dimensions or that already existed there that are adjusting their frequency to match slightly the subatomic frequency of the vibration of the third dimension. And the Halls of Amenti, according to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, are a place where they created these gigantic stone boxes made out of diorite and crystal granite. And these boxes allowed them to put bodies in them, and supposedly bodies with no soul. And they would transfer their consciousness from one body, from their mind to the next body, one body to the next. And they would leave and walk out of these boxes, and they would say they would walk amongst men but unlike men, while they had an empty sleeve inside of these chambers recharging. According to Thoth, there's halls of Amentis in many different places, and two that I feel that I have discovered is one underneath the pyramid of Saqqara, the step pyramid of Saqqara, and another complete halls of Amenti at the Serapeum, about 50 feet underground in Saqqara as well. Underneath Giza, they discovered this plateau underneath the sands, going a mile out underneath the sands of halls. That was about maybe 7 years ago now. The halls in that particular location were all empty, but the halls, the archway halls, were actually there, or are actually there, which is wild. Now, there's a special shaft that I take people to when I take them to Egypt and take them on a special VIP private visit to the Great Pyramid. We spent about 4 to 5 hours there. And there's a shaft called the subterranean shaft that hardly anybody in the world has ever been into, and access is extremely limited. It's locked and chained and everything else. But when we go there, we take the chains and the locks off. We've got the key. And we take you down, if you'd like to go down, this 65-meter shaft that goes down, all the way beneath the Great Pyramid, about the length of a football field. Then another 40 meters drop from there in a straight down angle, vertically going down. There's even more than that down there. So underneath the pyramid is this huge, it's like a whole nother world of shafts and entranceways and closed off doors and everything else, leading to other tunnels and shafts and other places that go underneath the sands of Giza to the Halls of Amenti and many other places. This particular Halls of Amenti, they claim, is empty. And that's pretty interesting. I don't believe that it's empty, but if it is, okay, it is what it is. They're not going to let us get down there. But there's more than one Halls of Amenti. Thoth talks about the fact that, for example, his father, Enki, had Halls of Amenti. The 7 lords also had these different Halls of Amenti. Enki had a Halls of Amenti. So these people were utilizing these chambers, these halls, and these crystal diorite boxes, which were radioactive, as some type of a tool or mechanism to recharge bodies while they were utilizing other bodies. And these bodies weren't stolen bodies. According to them, they fabricated their own bodies. In other words, just like the movie Avatar, they made their own avatars, which is incredible. Same thing we're trying to do today. Let's take a look at what Thoth is saying here. He says, I, Thoth, the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti. He's saying right now in that particular verse, he's saying that he's letting you know who he is and what he's capable of and what he's known for. And he's saying that he's about to descend into the halls of Amenti. In other words, knowing me in this particular form, in this avatar, is only temporary. You won't see this avatar again because I'm about to go and transfer it to another body. I'll put this one in the chamber and let it rejuvenate for 100 years. He would put a body in a chamber for 100 years at a time. He's talking about getting ready to descend into the halls of Amenti, not so he can die, but so that he can actually live. These records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis set down for the guidance of those that are to come after in the great city of Kior on the island of Undal. In a time far past, I began this incarnation. He's talking about the fact that he had already began the incarnation in that body that he's talking to them in, from the halls of Amenti located on the Kior, on the island of Undal. So there's a place called Kior, and in this place, okay, there's a halls of Amenti, and it's located somewhere on an island, and the island is called Undal. He's talking about his ability to consciously decide when to incarnate. He incarnates at will. As a matter of fact, in the Immortality, he says he incarnates on and in the plane he desires. We're talking about planes, plane meaning dimensions. So he can incarnate in different densities even. This is a skill that takes a true ascended master and a true understanding of the physics of the universe, which according to him he has obtained. Thoth says, 100 times 10 have I descended the dark way that led to light, and as many times have I ascended from the darkness into the light, my strength and power have been renewed. Then he says, now for a time I descend, and the men of Chem shall know me no more. So he's saying at that point, that at that moment, in that particular avatar body, he was going to descend back into the halls of Amenti, and he was going to put that body away, let it recharge in the chamber, while he left and used another body and went somewhere else to do another mission. So it says, understand here that the men of Chem refers to the people of Egypt. Yet notice that we get our word alchemy from this Egyptian name. He says that he has descended into the halls of Amenti, where his regeneration chamber is. Certainly, we can understand the concept of cellular regeneration. He says that he spent a total of 10,000 years, 100 times 10, regenerating his avatar over the course of many eons. Thoth says, purposes yet unborn in the womb of time, long ages I dwelt in the temple, learning ever yet and ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Taught me he the path to Amenti, the underworld where the great king sits upon his throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life and the lords of death, receiving my gift, the key of life. Free was I of the halls of Amenti, bound not by death to the circle of life. He's talking about the fact that at this point he had become a master of incarnation. In these words, Thoth explains he has now overcome reincarnation. He has now achieved the ability to consciously incarnate at will and transfer his mind into any new body. Now for a time I go among them into the dark halls of Amenti, deep into the halls of the earth, before the Lord of powers, face to face again with the dweller. Raise thy high over the entrance a doorway, a gateway. He's talking about a Stargate, leading down to Amenti. Few there would be with courage to dare it. Few passed the portal to the dark Amenti. Raised over the passage I, a mighty pyramid. He's talking about the Great Pyramid. Using the power that overcomes Earth's force. He's talking about anti-gravity in ancient times. He's talking about using the power that overcomes Earth's force. He's talking about using something that overcomes gravity. Anti-gravity is what he's talking about 36,000 years ago. Deep and yet deeper place I a force, house, or chamber. From it I carved a circular passage, reaching almost to the great summit. There in the apex set I the crystal, which is missing now from the top of the pyramid, sending a ray into time-space, drawing the force from out of the ether, concentrating upon the gateway to Amenti. So in some way, the apex crystal that's missing from the top of the Great Pyramid used to harness some type of cosmic energy, and he utilized that energy in tune with the pyramid, which is the machine itself, to keep the bodies, or those chambers, recharging the bodies or regenerating the bodies. It was one of the sources of power. He says, other chambers I built and left vacant, all to seeming, yet hidden within them are the keys to Amenti. So we see he has some fake halls of Amenti in case people stumble on some and discover them. And then they look empty, like there's nothing there. But there is something there for the one who has the key to access them and utilize them. So this is just incredible. This is an incredible level of knowledge. This is an incredible level of advanced and forward thinking. It's superior thinking. We are just now today trying to barely scratch the surface to this level of technology that they achieved tens of thousands of years ago. Thoth says, so that I might be here when again I return from Amenti, while I sleep in the halls of Amenti, my soul roaming free will incarnate and dwell among men in one form or another. They slept in rejuvenation chambers for 100 years at a time as they astral projected and traveled amongst the universe. Did you hear what I just said? They slept in regeneration chambers for 100 years at a time as they astral projected and traveled the universe. Flashed forth my soul through infinity's beauty. Far through space I flew with my thoughts. Rested out there on a planet of beauty. Strains of harmony filled all the air. Shapes were there, moving in order, great and majestic as stars in the night, mounting in harmony, ordered equilibrium, symbols of the cosmic, like unto law. Many of the stars I passed in my journey, many of the races of men on their worlds. We're talking about multiple planets with multiple races of men. Many races of men. Not one race, many races. Some reaching as high as the stars of the morning. In other words, some reaching golden age level, high spirituality, high technology. Some falling low in the blackness of night. Some collapsing civilizations. Each and all of them struggling upward, gaining the heights and plumbing the depths. Moving at times in realms of brightness, having glimpses of greatness in them, right? Living through the darkness, but trying to gain the light. Isn't that where we are right now? Isn't that where we are right now as a civilization? As a civilization right now, this exact moment, this is exactly where we are right now. Struggling upward, getting the heights, and plumbing the depths. We rise up, right? We then, hey, this is great, we're doing okay. And then some crazy stuff happens and we go back down again. Isn't that right? Many of the stars I passed on my journey, many of the races of men on their worlds. Now, why am I reading that again? Because it's very interesting to me that in so many texts that I've read, there's very few, there are some, but very few references to men being of multiple races on different planets and worlds. This is one of the very few that actually exists. One of the very few that actually exist. Many the races of men on their worlds. In other words, men on worlds is normal, and races of men on worlds is also normal. It's not abnormal. It's actually normal. He has the ability to keep a body, like I said, in the chamber and let his soul roam into a new body, and then he'll dwell amongst men. He could be here right now, today. You say, well, where'd he go? Where's Thoth at right now? Oh, he could be just chilling right now. He says, emissary on earth am I of the dweller. Now let's look up that word emissary so you can get an understanding of what it exactly means. It says here, a person sent on a special mission, usually a diplomatic representative. A person sent on a special mission, usually a diplomatic representative. Deep in Earth's heart lie the halls of Amenti, far beneath the island of the sunken Atlantis. It's beneath Atlantis, okay? It's beneath Atlantis. Now, there's several halls of Amenti, and the clue to this is in this particular tablet, he's talking about a Halls of Amenti underneath Atlantis. And in another chapter or another tablet, he's talking about the Halls of Amenti underneath the Great Pyramid. There's also another Halls of Amenti in the vicinity of the pyramids at Giza. And I know exactly which one it is. It's at Saqqara, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. Halls of the Dead and Halls of the Living. You see, Halls of the Dead and Halls of the Living. These chambers are holding bodies that are quote unquote dead. They're not really dead, but they're in a rejuvenation stage, okay, according to Thoth. And some of them have been rejuvenated and walk amongst men. He says we walk amongst men, but unlike a man. They could be sitting next to you in a movie theater. They could be on you, sitting by you next to you on an airplane. They could be walking down the street, right past you in a shopping mall, or walking a dog in your neighborhood, and you wouldn't even know that it was them. Bathed in the fire of the infinite all. The fire which we talked about last week is the eternal fire, the same fire that Yeshua, aka Jesus, talked about in the Bible, right? It's the fire of the infinite all. It's the fire which represents eternal life. And in here, he's talking about the fact that these bodies have the spirit of the eternal life in them, even though some are rejuvenating and some are walking amongst men. Far in a past time, lost in the space-time, the children of light look down on the world. The children of light are these Atlantean people. They look down on the world. From where? From above. Seeing the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond, knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. What is our bondage? We're in bondage right now. We're in bondage by racism, separation, division. We're in bondage by the matrix of financial systems. We're in bondage by the prison system, the education system. We're in bondage by, all of these different systems that exist, the religious systems that have kept us mentally bondaged. So we have all this bondage that we're in right now, and they've been looking at this for eons. But he said that, but they're talking about the fact that they had an interest in trying to free us or help nudge us in the right direction. So knew they that by only freedom from bondage, in other words, once we can overcome all these matrices that we're encased in and completely absolved in, that we could now rise from the earth to the sun. But if we can't get out of bondage, this mental bondage and physical bondage, we will never rise. In other words, what is rising from the earth to the sun? They're talking about rising to a golden age, rising to the light, seeking the light, eventually becoming the light. We're talking about a golden age, talking about obtaining a higher level of consciousness. But how do you free somebody from bondage? You got to free them from their mental prison. According to Thoth, only free-thinking individuals using their own conscious thoughts can be capable of rising up to a higher level of consciousness. Let's look here. He says, down they descended and created bodies. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. The masters of everything said after their forming, we are they who were formed from the space dust, partaking of life from the infinite, being in the world as children of men. They didn't say children of God. They said children of men. Like and yet unlike the children of men. When they say we are they who are formed from space dust, we're talking about anything that exists in the third dimension is formed from space dust, including you and me. Because without space dust, no human being can exist. Space dust from exploding stars that have exploded millions of years ago. The stars, when they begin to use up deplete a lot of the nuclear fusion, they then become depleted to a point where they actually supernova. And when they go supernova, because the amount of force, the gravitational force pushing down on the core, because there's less nuclear reaction going on, there's less force pushing away from the core. So that balance that sustains this fusion is gone, and the star collapses and goes supernova. So it implodes and explodes. And the fusion of those heavier elements go out into space, and then those elements, they'll recoalesce in accretion disks, which you still call them creation disks, because accretion disks create. And a lot of those heavier elements are in each and every one of our bodies, allowing us to become a corporeal entity that can house a spirit. So all of us are space dust. So they know this, and they're saying, yeah, we use the space dust to create these corporeal bodies. So they made bodies that look like men, look like us. They didn't say that they stole bodies and inhabited those bodies or possessed a body. Like the people out here walking around saying that, Thoth is possessing bodies. He could snatch your soul. No, they created their own bodies. Like Avatar, like the movie Avatar, they created their own avatar bodies and then put their minds inside of them. They didn't snatch any of the indigenous bodies. They made their own. It's the same exact concept and the same exact system as well. Where do you think Avatar got the idea from? They got it from the Halls of Amenti, from the Emerald Tablets. They're living here, walking amongst us right now as children of men, like and yet unlike the children of men. So they say that they are like men, but unlike a man. They're walking amongst us, looking like men. You wouldn't even know the difference. You wouldn't be able to even tell that who you're talking to is a cloned avatar body with a transferred consciousness inside of it. You wouldn't even be able to tell. You would have no clue. None. And they're still here doing the same thing. Like I said, they can be sitting next to you in a movie theater. They can sit next to you on an airplane. They could be in line with you at the grocery store, walking your dog down your neighborhood, driving down the street. They could even be on social media, but you'll never know. They say like, but unlike the children of men, just like Jesus, aka Yeshua. He was like, but unlike the children of men. He was a Christ. He said, guided he then by wisdom and knowledge, passes from men to the master of life. There he may dwell as one of the masters, free from the bonds of the darkness of night, seated within the flower of radiance. He's talking about the flower of life now. He's in the energy pattern. He's in the energy form. Free from the bonds of darkness of night, seated within the flower of radiance, sit 7 lords from the space-time above us, helping and guiding through infinite wisdom. He's talking about something higher than this dimension. He says, now I return to the halls of Amenti, leaving behind me some of my wisdom. Hermes, thrice born, is the strongest candidate for Thoth's mention of my soul roaming will be free to incarnate and dwell amongst men in this form or another. It is Hermes Trismegistus who is responsible for maintaining, secreting, and teaching the single emerald tablet generally referred to until 1925. The Greeks call him Hermes Trismegistus, 3 times the greatest. They know he's been incarnated at least 3 times in their understanding of time. Lord Shiva, when you study Lord Shiva, has a lot of the same qualities as Tahuti, except the only difference between Tahuti and Lord Shiva was blue. He was a blue god. In other words, he was physically actually blue. Mm-hmm. The thing that's amazing about him is he had access to these portals, and we know that Thoth from Africa, aka Tahuti, he also had access to portals. And no matter where you go around the world, portals exist, and the rumor is that he would step into these portals and disappear. And I've stood inside of some of these Stargates that appear to lead into dead-end walls that have a little notch inside the wall, the stone, and they say he would put something in that notch and he would vanish and he would be somewhere else on the planet. Ooh. So no matter where you go on Earth, I believe he's Lord Shiva, right? I believe also throughout Africa he's Tahuti, Thoth. You go into Europe, all of a sudden he's Odin, he's Mercury. Mm-hmm. You go into he's also Thor. You go into Australia, he's Thoth Amabi, and there's a huge petroglyph etched into the ground there of Thoth with the beak on the back of this thing with this circle with all these spirals going around it, and the Aboriginals say that's Thoth Amabi on a spaceship flying through the Milky Way galaxy. Wow. Then you go to Mesoamerica, which is now, of course, Mexico and all the South American area. He's known as Quetzalcoatl, Lorpacal, Kukulkan, Viracocha, and you get all these names. It's always the same person in different bodies, same exact quality, same knowledge, the knowledge bringer, the bringer of thought, the bringer of alchemy, science, magic, medicine, healing. It's always the same person. No matter where you go on this planet, you'll find an account of this person being there. I mean, who thought that he would be in Bora Bora, of all places? That's just crazy. This is a gigantic stone box that weighs about 600 tons. Yeah, that one right there. And then the lid probably weighs about 400 tons. All right, that was just that one. Let me go to another one. This one's even bigger than that one. The lid was already open. If the lid is open, it was because somebody opened it, but it wasn't anybody in modern times. We can't open the lids to these things because the way they're designed, they're almost hermetically sealed. So the only way to open the ones that had lids sealed, we tried to blow them open. Not me, but the researcher, the archaeologist, tried to use explosives, and all they did was damage everything. Okay, but to look on the inside. But the ones that were already open, nobody knows how they got opened, because none of us, nobody right now today in this modern society can open these things because of the way they're designed. And just let me tell you how big they are. The one you just saw, I can stand up in it at 6'4", and I can barely see the rim, barely. And the width is probably about 2/3 of my wingspan. So we're talking about probably 5 feet and change. And the length is about 8 feet to 10 feet long. Massive. And inside is so smooth, like they use some type of incredible technology to I mean, how do you get smooth diorite and smooth crystal granite like that in that massive scale? Let me show you something else here real quick.
Granite is also granite. We have diorite, which is kind of very solid.
These boxes are massive. This is an actual rejuvenation chamber. You're looking at it inside of a hall. There's many halls down there. I think there's, I don't know how many were down this particular one, but there's definitely more than a dozen. Okay? And each one has one of these megalithic boxes. That particular box was about 1,000 tons. That's crazy numbers. Now, the size of these boxes, these rejuvenation chambers, they're so large and so heavy, and the pathway to get down to put them in the alcove is so narrow, you can't make them up above ground and then take them beneath ground 3 stories and then maneuver them into those locations. It's impossible. You also can't make them in those locations because in order to make a box that size, you need a piece 2/3 larger to start chiseling away at it to actually make the box that you want to be that size. Again, that means you're trying to maneuver even an even bigger piece of stone down there. It's not going to happen. There's only 2 ways to do those, to get those in there. One is teleportation, and the second way is the ability to manifest them there in some way, shape, or form that we don't understand. That is what makes it so incredible. And the fact that, I'm the only person to discover these 2 locations as being linked to the Halls of Amenti. We talk about anti-gravity a lot, and Thoth talked about utilizing anti-gravity. Obviously, I only read a small piece, but the way that he's creating this anti-gravity is via somatic frequencies. He talks about using frequencies to levitate objects and to also manifest matter in the 3rd dimension. He talks about utilizing photons and cymatics together to create solid matter. Now, just only a few years ago, scientists right here on this planet Earth, human beings, just discovered a way to create solid matter from what? From light and frequencies. We just finally accomplished that just recently. So what Thoth is talking about 36,000 years ago that sounds like magic, guess what? It's basic peer-reviewed science now. Let's take a look at how frequencies can actually elevate stones or levitate stones. Yeah. So we know how to do levitation via frequencies already. There's a famous stone. It's on the Shamash tablet, where Shamash is an Anunnaki god teaching human beings the power of anti-gravity, utilizing frequencies. I've made many posts about it that have went uber viral over the years. Over the last 8 years, it's gone viral so many times when I repost it. He's literally showing magnetic fields, an oscillator, and also a somatic frequency. We know the exact frequency he's utilizing because he shows us the frequency pattern. And that is the frequency pattern for anti-gravity. And he has human beings, one person holding a gigantic stone table, and the human man is lifting it with one hand because the frequency is directly over the table, giving it anti-gravity properties. Right now today, in science, if you look this up, you'll discover this is accurate. They can take a skin cell from you. That skin cell, they can then, under the right laboratory conditions, cultivate it into a stem cell. Then they can cultivate that one stem cell into groups of stem cells. From that, they can turn those groups of stem cells into a synthetic embryo. They can then take that synthetic embryo, which is a copy of you, and grow it to any age specified. And then the next step is to be able to transfer your mind into your new avatar body. That's being worked on right now today. They've got the first part covered, all the way up to creating synthetic embryos. Look it up. They've been creating synthetic embryos for quite some time now from stem cells. Now, the next step is transferring your mind into your new body. It's a whole new level of understanding immortality, which is how these ancient people understood it. Okay? So what is this telling you? We're talking about the fact that this Halls of Amenti and this transfer of consciousness, it's a realistic concept. So if you hear it in the ancient text and you don't know about the technology part that's going on right now in this era, and you hear somebody talk, these ancient beings were talking about transferring their consciousness. Now that's way out there, man. That's psychobabble. Oh, really? Well, let's open up the science books, because right now there's theoretical physicists and scientists and biologists working on this today, and they've already achieved it with the monkey. Transferred the monkey into a computer. So what are we talking about? We're talking about reality all of a sudden. We're talking about real science all of a sudden. We're talking about understanding that you can take a person's mind and move it around from place to place and keep it consistent, keep it the same exact frequency, which makes that particular consciousness what we consider to be a unique individual, right? The 2045 Initiative is a non-profit organization. We're talking about right now, our current time. The 2045 Initiative is a non-profit organization that develops a network of community of researchers in the field of life extension. The main goal of the 2045 Initiative, as stated on its website, 2045.com, is to create technologies enabling the transfer of an individual's personality to a more advanced non-biological carrier and extending life, including to the point of immortality. We devote particular attention to enabling the fullest possible dialogue between the world's major spiritual traditions, science, and society. As evidenced by the information provided on 2045.com, it appears that we are following in the footsteps of the Atlanteans, who were seeking eternal life in the physical form. Take a look at some of the goals and initiatives being planned by the group 2045.com, and they've already achieved a couple of these. From the year 2015 to 2020, 2045.com would like to create and supply the world with affordable Android avatars that will be controlled by a system that links people's brains with computers. They've already transferred a monkey's brain into a computer using that same link. The monkey's body is dead and the monkey thinks it's still alive and it's living inside of a computer. Right now, today, 2020 to 2025, they would like to create an autonomous life support system in which a human brain can be taken out of the body and kept alive while being linked to a robotic avatar. Their hope is that a person whose body is failing them can live a full life. They're getting all this from the tablets. 2030 to 2035, the group at 2045.com wishes to create immortality by building a computer model of the brain that allows human consciousness to be transferred to the artificial carrier, giving everyone the possibility of cybernetic immortality. 2045. By this date, 2045.com, we would like to have established a new era for humanity in which technological brains are transferred minds. Sounds like the Halls of Amenti to me. Let's look what DARPA has planned for the, the Avatar project is what they're calling it. DARPA, that's the U.S. military black budget project, right? Of course, they always want to find technology like this and then see how they can actually weaponize it. So DARPA reveals their Avatar program. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, is an agency in the United States Department of Defense responsible for the development of emerging technologies for use by the military. According to Sebastian Anthony of Extreme Tech News, the Avatar project goal is to work on interfaces and algorithms to enable a soldier to effectively partner with a semi-autonomous bipedal machine and allow it to act as the soldier's surrogate. So what they're saying here is they're going to create a symbiotic consciousness link from a soldier that could be in a bunker somewhere underneath the mountain, but he's consciously going to be symbiotically connected spiritually through his consciousness to a field robot that is a military field robot that's in battle, whether it's on the ground, whether it's in the air, wherever it is. And so they will control this robot through their conscious link, and that way, if the robot is destroyed in battle, the link is severed, and the soldier is still alive. That's what they're doing. DARPA wants to develop the walking equivalent of an unarmed aerial vehicle, a bipedal robot drone, where the controlling soldier is hundreds or even thousands of miles away from the war front, using a consciousness link. They are 300 years ahead of us. Us meaning civilians of the world, them meaning the governments and militaries. Their technology is 300 years ahead of us. Like I said before, whatever you can think, whatever you can dream up from any sci-fi movie you have ever saw in your life has already been done. Effectively too, not just tested, but actually accomplished and done, and actually can be put to use. And some are being put to use without our knowledge of it, and with no congressional oversight whatsoever. A lot of these black budget projects, most of these UFOs that are flying around are not UFOs. They're IFOs, identified flying objects. They were made by private corporations that are funded by the Pentagon. Facts. And Thoth said, "He who by progress has grown from the darkness, lifted himself from the night into light. Free is he of the halls of Amenti, free from the flower of light and of life." They knew about the flower of life 36,000 years ago, which is something that exists throughout all space-time. At every Planck unit in space-time exists a flower of life, which embedded within the flower of life is a 64-grid tetrahedron, and the connecting vertices of those tetrahedrons create something called the vector equilibrium. At the heart of the vector equilibrium, you have an unlimited, unparalleled source of power. It's the 0 point that everyone's been looking for. It's located in the flower of life pattern, which is super ancient. We've got depictions of it on statues and artwork and carvings from tens of thousands of years ago. Thoth is talking about this 36,000 years ago. This might not be the podcast for you, man. If you're not willing to open your mind and learn about what happened in the ancient past, if you want to go to some old wives' tales and fairy tales, this ain't gonna be the podcast for you, buddy. You must well go ahead and move on. All right, we're not scared like that. Over here, over here we're learning. Over here we're expanding consciousness. Over here we're exploring and asking questions and looking for connections. We're not into all that. It must be Satan. It's demons. We're not into that. That's for That's for spiritual babies. If you're a spiritual baby, just get off of this. Just get off this podcast. You can't handle this. This knowledge is too powerful for you because it's tearing down your belief system and it's ripping your soul out of your body. It's scaring the hell out of you. And if that's the case, just go ahead and move on, man. Go watch something else. Go watch ESPN or the Olympics, whatever. Go find something else to do. Go play with your kids, something, go talk to your wife or your whatever. But don't hang out on here because we're not into all that scary, spooky stuff. All right? We're too mature for that now. Those days are over. Okay? All that blind faith stuff and that demons are scaring us. Those days are coming to an end. Okay? Your days are numbered. Bible thumpers, your days are numbered. Y'all are the last, or maybe 2 generations more, and y'all be done. People are asking questions and waking up nowadays. It ain't no more of this crazy stuff. We're not into the psychosis anymore. All right, we're beyond that. We're beyond that stage. Our minds are so far advanced and so capable of understanding higher concepts and exploring different information. It doesn't scare us anymore. We've got rid of the boogeyman called the devil that can whisper in your ears and trick you and beguile you and all that crazy shit. We're done with that. Those days are over. All right, just move on to something else. Thoth says, not as the little men of the present age did, but the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die. But rather from eon to eon did they renew their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Now that's an interesting statement. He's talking about the river of life. Listen to what he says here. He says, not as the little men of the present age did, but the mighty ones of Atlantis live and die. He said, rather from eon to eon, that's thousands of years he's talking, did they renew their life in the halls of Amenti, where the river of life flows eternally onward. Now, this river, I've been researching, what is this river that they're talking about, this river of life? And I found this river of life information in biblical texts where Jesus is talking. He says almost the same thing that Thoth says, except Jesus was 2,000 years ago and Thoth was 36,000 years ago. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Jesus says in the New Testament, Book of John 7:38, he that believes in me, out of his being shall flow rivers of living water. Thoth says, where the river of life flows eternally onward. It's the same exact statement. Pretty interesting. It's the same exact statement. Why does Jesus' statement align with what Thoth says? Because he was either a student of Thoth, either he is Thoth, or maybe, like I suggested in the beginning of this talk, maybe a relative, like a son, potentially. The teachings of Yeshua were the teachings he learned in Egypt when he went to go learn the Egyptian mysteries. He's saying the same things because this is the source that he learned it from. In these passages, we can already see that the tone is set for reincarnation and regeneration, very similar to the biblical statement in 2 Corinthians 5:2-7. We grow weary in our present bodies, and we long to put on our heavenly bodies like new clothing. For we will put on heavenly bodies. We will not be spirits without bodies. That's in the Bible. Let me say that again. We will not be spirits without bodies. While we live in these earthly bodies, we groan and sigh, but it's not what we want to die and get rid of in these bodies. We want them to clothe us. Rather, we want to put on our new bodies so that these dying bodies will be swallowed up by life. God himself has prepared for us this, and as a guarantee, he has given us the Holy Spirit. So we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord, for we live by believing, not by seeing. So in the biblical text, they're already talking about the fact that when you die, you will be reincarnated into a new body. You're not going to be some floating light spirit with no body. It clearly states that you're going to get a new body. They said you won't be a spirit without a body, 2 Corinthians. Now, what is a human being right now? A human being is a spirit with a body. You are a spirit first that is inhabiting a physical body in the third dimension. What it's saying here in 2 Corinthians, they're alluding to the fact that they understand that there is a reincarnation process. That even after you, quote unquote, pass on to your next life, the spirit also then again longs for some type of a corporeal body, or they're alluding to the fact that they're looking forward to putting on their new corporeal body. Interesting. Just showing you how some of these texts from religious books line up with ancient teachings and most likely it was taken directly from ancient teachings. Okay?
So we're talking about an understanding of these people who wrote a lot of the parts of the biblical text. They were writing from their perspective as well, based on other ancient texts where they got the information about regenerating bodies, getting new bodies, transferring consciousness into new bodies. This is what this is saying. It's talking about putting on a new sleeve, getting rid of the old sleeve and getting it hopping into a new sleeve. It said, we will not be spirits without bodies. So you're going to have a spirit and a body. Well, you right now have a spirit and a body. Nothing's going to change. And Thoth said, but in the time yet unborn will I rise again, mighty and potent, requiring an accounting of those left behind me. Another interesting statement made by Thoth many thousands of years before Jesus tells his disciples that he will rise again in Mark 9:31. Then beware, O men of Chem, if ye falsely betrayed my teaching, for I shall cast ye down from your highest estate into the darkness of the caves from whence ye came. Betray not my secrets to the men of the north, or the men of the south, lest my curse fall upon thee. Remember to heed my words, for surely I return again, and I require thee which ye guard. Aye, even from beyond time and from beyond death will I return, rewarding or punishing as ye have requited your trust. In the biblical text of John 14:20, Jesus declares to his followers, I go away and come again unto you. Tell no one the Son of Man has risen again. Thoth says, for surely I will come again, betray not my secrets. This is the same stuff. Why is Jesus' stuff, or I call him Yeshua, that's his real name, why is it the same? Because he learned it from the same source. That's why he's reteaching. Just like if I become a physicist and I have a school and I'm a professor, I have students come and I teach my students. Some of those students will become professors and they'll be saying the same things I taught them. This is the same scenario we have here.
The emerald tablets of the Atlantean Thoth laid hidden and buried under the Great Pyramid of Giza for centuries. The date of their concealment is unknown, but we do know it was sometime after Thoth left his earthly kingship over the Egyptians. You see, Thoth had ruled over the land of ancient Kemet before it was even called Egypt. According to the Egyptians, not according to me, he ruled for 16,000 years, one man, over the land of ancient Kemet. He even helped them rebuild civilization there after the Great Flood. He rebuilt a post-diluvial, highly advanced civilization there. After some time, he left, and he went to Mesoamerica, and he built the Teotihuacan civilization. What's Thoth's name in Africa? He's known as Thoth, but he's also known as Tahuti. And what does Teotihuacan translate to? The city of Tahuti. Same person, two different continents in ancient times. Even now, under the Great Pyramid of Giza lies an undiscovered place of otherworldly appearance and the access point to a realm referred to as the Great Halls of Amenti. For generation upon generation after the earthly departure of Thoth, specially appointed priests of Thoth from the early departure performed as guardians to the hiding place of this domain. Those pyramid priests are still there. I know them well. I see them every year. Around 1200 BC, priests removed these tablets from Egypt and carried them throughout the world to all former Atlantean colonies. Now this is important because, like I always say, Atlantis was not just a ringed city located in one place, potentially in the Atlantic Ocean, right, or the Pillars of Hercules, but Atlantis was many capitals on Earth. The ring city was one of many capitals, and they had kings ruling over different regions of the planet. That's how it was set up back then. What ended up happening is they all went to war against each other. And the war extended from Earth to the moon and even all the way to Mars, the god of war. And there's a reason for that, but that's a whole nother podcast that gets into the Epic of Atrahasis. And the Ijiji wanted to go to war against the kings of Earth, Enki, Enlil, and Anu. The further away from Egypt the priests traveled, the more new civilizations experienced religious renaissances. Do you understand what's going on here? These tablets hold the key behind all spiritual beliefs. And wherever these priests traveled with the knowledge of what's in these tablets, as they were teaching and preaching the knowledge in the tablets,
which really are the secrets of the mystery schools, people in those regions began to spring up new religions, spiritual beliefs out of nowhere. There you can actually track the path of tablets around the world as new religions and new spirituality beliefs would begin to pop up and crop up everywhere, because these emerald tablets are the main source for most belief systems that exist. Finally, the priests left the tablets buried under the unmarked temple, perhaps under the pyramid of Pakal the Great, Lord Pakal. That's in where? Mexico. Okay, we're talking about what used to be considered Mesoamerica, and now it's obviously not Mesoamerica anymore. It's Mexico and South America, where the Mayans obviously used to live. That area is, now has many different names, but it used to be one big name, Mesoamerica. That's where Thoth went to build the Teotihuacan civilizations. Thoth gave Dorial permission to retain a copy of his translations after making the arduous journey and delivering the tablets to the doorway of the Halls of Amenti. We can imagine Dorial taking a transport ship across the Atlantic in the mid-1920s, bound for Egypt, while concealing the glistening emerald tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. How he must have slipped serendipitously into the pyramid complex under cover of darkness. Directed by the presence of Thoth to the hidden entrance, this entrance lay undisturbed for 3,300 years, since the guardian priests had left behind their temples for the mission of Thoth. These most ancient tablets are the ones formed by Thoth, the god of wisdom and knowledge, and written for the spiritual enlightenment of all those who respond and receive the rarefied form of consciousness as a gift from God himself. Thoth was a god king of Egypt for thousands of years, but when he decided to return to the Halls of Amenti, he built the Great Pyramid of Egypt to serve a twofold function. Firstly, to safeguard the emerald tablets, and secondly, to serve as a hidden entrance to the Halls of Amenti. Thoth says that beneath the Great Pyramid stands the doorway to the underworld, where the Master of Masters dwell.
Now, these Halls of Amenti are not Thoth's halls. This is his father's. These halls right here, they're underground. These belong to Enki, Enki. Enki is the father of Thoth, the Atlantean priest king, and the emerald tablets. His name is Thothme, Thothme, right? He's the ruler of Undal, and he is a master geneticist according to the ancient tablets that have been left behind. Now, what's interesting is he also had his own halls. These people, these advanced beings, they had their own rejuvenation chambers that they would go to store their own avatar bodies, that they would take the time to clone them in some way that we don't understand. They weren't cloned from existing people. They fashioned these bodies themselves, and then they would inhabit them and walk amongst men, but unlike a man. Now, what's interesting about these halls, you can see how incredible these halls look in terms of the technology used to construct this underground labyrinth. There's no mummies down there. There's no dead bodies down there. There's no buried pharaohs. There's nothing. You know what's down there? Hall after hall after hall after hall. And what's in those halls? 80-ton granite. What look like sarcophagus, but they're not sarcophagus. They're actually the actual rejuvenation chambers. The rejuvenation chambers are in there, and they're pristine clean on the inside. I've gotten inside of some of these, and if you have enough strength to climb up and climb over some of you, we can help you get inside of some of them. All right. But what's interesting is these gigantic 80-ton objects, these rejuvenation chambers, there is not enough space to maneuver them through this underground labyrinth. First of all, to get them down there at that weight, and then to get them in their own little tiny alcove that they are tucked into. They fit snug as a bug in a rug right in these things. How did they get them in there? There's no way to even turn the corner to get them in, which means they materialized them down there. After carving out these halls underground, they then vitrified the rock to make it a firm structure. And then after they did that, they materialized these gigantic megaton megalith rejuvenation chambers directly into their alcoves. and they were all connected with it through a network, an energetic network. They were connected energetically down there. You could feel the energy when you go down there, and then they would get inside of one of these. Thoth would climb inside, or this was Enki's. He would climb inside of one, and he would transfer his consciousness into one that was already ready to go inside of another one of these halls down there, and then he would get up and climb out of that chamber, but leaving the other body he just left, the other sleeve he just left behind, rejuvenating down there for about 100 years, while he climbed it out and walked amongst men in another one. And when that one wore out or got injured or got sick, he'd go drop that one off and go into another one. They had many bodies already established and set and waiting for them to be able to just come and take a new sleeve whenever they needed one. Okay? Incredible. All right. Here is another one. You see how tight that is in there? This 80-ton rejuvenation chamber. You can't even turn the corner to get it in there. If you did find a way to get it down that deep and down the hall to get it turned into that corner, you wouldn't be able to do it. You just couldn't do it. And you can't make it down there, because to make granite top and bottom of that size and that magnitude, you would need a piece of granite probably the size of the room I'm sitting in, probably a 35 by 50 room. Just a granite would need to be that big and that massive to carve it down to the size that's here. Forbidden knowledge, guys. I'm inside of the Serapeum at Saqqara. This place is incredible. First of all, there's things in here you wouldn't even imagine could exist. The lid on this sarcophagus is super massive. It weighs about 70 tons. The base weighs about another 80 tons. The two together, well over 100 tons of granite from Aswan, which is about maybe 200 miles, maybe 300 miles away from here. We're in the middle of the desert. Not only that, how did they get it into this narrow area and set it in here like this? And what was it for? It's something this massive in a place like this. The answers are on Forbidden Knowledge TV. ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. I'm in back of one of the alcoves. I'm inside of one of the halls, so in back of the actual sarcophagus. Now this it's really a rejuvenation chamber. Now this one is the only one that even the priests that guard it will tell you that it has stargates on it, rectangular stargates. On every single side there's rectangular stargates. So that my hand is actually touching one of the inscriptions, which represents a gate. But also what it's touching solid granite that's warped as if an energy signature hit it and somehow modified or changed the atomic structure of the granite, allowing it to warp and bend without cracking. Now, I don't know if you understand granite and how hard granite is, and how tough it is to even form it or shape it into these amazing shapes. But then to be able to even have anything that can dent and warp granite as if it was fluid. Now, what's interesting about this, in front of me where you can't see where the person is standing that took this photo, there's a wall in the back of that hall. Now that wall has a gigantic opening in it that you can see has been something energetic came through it and formed this opening that came through it. That beam that came through the back wall of that hall is what hit this sarcophagus, this rejuvenation chamber, and actually warped solid granite. I don't know if you understand. I wish I could make you understand. You can't warp granite. You cannot do this. You just can't. It would crack and break before it warped like this. It's wavy as if it turned into liquid. Okay? Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that an energetic beam of some type, an exotic energy beam, came through that back wall and hit this rejuvenation chamber. Now, Thoth talks about having the capability of going into his underground chambers and traveling from place to place not only on Earth, but even to other places. And so he has these portals. I remember I went to Tula, Mexico. I think it was 2015. I was in Tula, and I went to his one of his homes. He has actually several homes. This was his house is a pyramid, of course, and then on top are Thoths, but underneath he lived inside. But in the back there was a Stargate, a rectangular Stargate, just like these, and the indigenous people there, and even the guide said he would walk into that fake door and stand there and then vanish. Where would he reappear? Places like this, in the Halls of Amenti. Imagine he's coming back and he's coming to this hall, or his dad Enki's coming to this Halls of Amenti, and the portal opens up, and it actually, the energetic beam from the portal over this stable wormhole creates some type of energetic beam that breaks through the back hall and then hits this rejuvenation chamber, and it actually warps 80 tons of granite like it was just butter. Incredible stuff. The book is still a bestseller for a reason. It's a bestseller in 5 countries for a reason. A lot of great information in this book. I can sit here and talk to you for hours and hours and hours just going through 3 or 4 pages. Okay? A lot of great reviews on this book from a lot of big name people.
By Compendium of the Emerald Tablets by Billy Carson.